I realized not too long ago that I had lost a skill I used to have as a kid. It was the ability to tell stories freely without thinking too much about it. What made me decide to talk about this was I watched a short video for a little girl who was switching between English and Chinese so effortlessly, so easily. And the people in the comments were very impressed. One comment stood out to me. It was a person who said, "This was me as a child. What happens over time is that one language becomes stronger than the other one because um because of its usage, the frequency of its usage." And that made sense to me because skills just don't die out overnight. They atrophy without being used regularly or consistently. They weaken. When we were kids, this thing we used to do: we watch a movie, watch a film, and the next day when we come to school, we gather around and we start telling each other stories, start narrating the story from beginning to end. This was in the 80s and the 90s. Without telling the story back to each other. Who was the villain? Who was the main character? What happened? The conflicts. So we didn't necessarily understand the context or the little innuendos or the little in jokes. Probably didn't catch that. We were too young to understand that part. But we understood, at least we could paint the picture of what was happening. It was natural. Unfortunately, something happens over time, and that's as we grow up and we become more mature. Maybe your mid 20s or 30s, life starts to happen. Life is more structured. You become more controlled, more measured in the way you speak. You might not necessarily have the need to be imaginative or creative in the way you speak, in the way you express your words, except you're in certain fields where maybe you need it. Maybe you're a politician, which is a little bit more blister, or you're a little bit, you're an artist, or let's say an actor or a musician. Then you can. That's why when you see these artists in the interviews, you see them just going in circles, talking a lot of what seems to us like nonsense, but they're still in that state, that childlike state where they're still just flowing with the picture. But maturity happens to most of us, and that part of us just atrophies. So you speak when necessary to your family, at work, when something needs to be said. And without even noticing it, that part of you just slowly fades away. I saw this a few years ago in my life when I was trying to read stories to my kids. I used to read them the books, but it got to a point when they wanted me to orally tell them new stories. And I was shocked to find out that all the stories I'd been told as a kid or I'd read as a kid, I had forgotten about them because I've not had the need to revisit them for such a long time, for decades. And I could remember only just two stories from beginning to the end, and that was Cinderella and I think Jack and the Beanstalk. Most of the other stories had holes in them. I couldn't remember who's the bad guy, who's the good person, what was the conflict. I couldn't remember most of this. So what did I do? I had to improvise. I started making up stories from the top of my head. At that time, I was watching Marvel movies with them, showing them a little bit of Iron Man and Captain America and all that. So they knew who Thanos was. So I created a story called Chicken Thanos. And they were like, there's nobody called Chicken Thanos. And I said, nah, there's Chicken Thanos. He's the chicken who found a gauntlet in the forest and he came back to the village and he was causing havoc and all sorts of ridiculous things to happen, different characters. And you can create a picture in your head. And because I was pushed to the wall, I had no choice. I started to create, imagine, and the storylines and characters from nowhere, from out of the blue. And it was fun because I saw their eyes light up. And that moment something clicked. It made me see how difficult it become for me to do something that was so effortless before. The ability to just imagine and express myself and just flow freely with words. And that, in a way, is one of the few things that made me want to do this. As I've grown on, I've not really had the need to just speak like this or tell stories freely. The need hasn't arisen. But this doesn't just apply to speaking, it can apply to other things like it can apply to your confidence, it can apply to you how you relate with people. It can apply to things in the physical, like going to the gym. If you're not working out consistently or something, you lose your strength or you lose that muscle. It can apply to your mind. You're someone that was an avid reader and all of a sudden you start reading. You start to notice that your vocabulary is a little bit limited. You start to notice that you're not as intellectually sound as you used to be. Things like that. There are a lot of things this can apply to. But the overarching point is that with anything in this life, something, especially if it's important to you, especially if something that you cherish, if you do not make use of it more often, or at least revisit it once in a while, it slowly fades away, slowly dies. It remains dormant, it becomes rusty. So I'm curious, is there some skill that you have or something that you're proficient in that over time has become weaker and weaker and you've noticed it? And what have you decided to do about it? Are you okay with it? I'm just curious. Let me know.